So this is a little bit of a story time. This happened a little while ago, but it's something I need to talk about. Something I haven't really talked about or discussed, but I definitely need to. So when I attended the RMH it was either when they put my J tube in or when I returned for complications relating to the J tube. I think I'm fairly certain it was when they put my J tube in. I noticed that my heart was acting really weirdly. And I brought it to the attention of the nurses, but they were like, oh, it's probably just nothing. And they didn't really investigate it. They were short-staffed and too busy and didn't really care. And because I kept complaining about it, they finally just decided it must be panic attacks and ignored me. And then I decided that I would call a friend of mine because I was feeling really, really, really ill. So I rang him. He then decided, okay, I've heard a lot of what's going on. I think I need to come to the hospital. So he came up to the hospital and he just took one look at me and he instinctively knew that there was something not right and that this was not a panic attack or not me just thinking that there was something wrong, and there was nothing. And he was like, yeah, you're not well. There's something very wrong here, which confirmed my suspicions. So I decided that since I wasn't no one was listening to me at the Royal Melbourne Hospital, I then decided that I would discharge myself earlier than what we had all discussed, and what was to be expected. And I then went with the male friend of mine and we went down to the car park, and when I was in the car park, he just said to me, your lips are white where they would normally be pink. I'm a bit concerned. And I said, oh, I don't think it's really quite that bad. Like, that does happen to me. I have had heart turns where it has turned me like white like that. So I'm, I just thought, okay. So I said, how about we try and do some shopping or something else and see how I go before we decide what we might do. When I got in the car, he literally drove like a madman through Melbourne and took me to a different hospital. And when I arrived, of course, the triage nurse asked me, like, why was I there? What was the reasonings? So I explained to her that my lips were white, that I feel like it's my heart is not working properly. She also noticed when she did her exam that I still had an armband on from the Royal Melbourne. And she asked me about it, so I was quite honest. I said, I've just come from there. They wouldn't listen to me about what's going on. So I said, I've had to come to you. So she took one look at me and she could see there was something very wrong. And they brought me straight through from the triage nurse immediately into a cubicle. There I was put into a gown, which I really wasn't helping a whole lot because I was beyond being able to do it. They had an ECG machine on me. And at first they were like, oh, it must be, the ECG machine is not working properly. So they brought another one in. Then they realized it wasn't the ECG machine, it was my heart. And I knew when the nurses started running that was not a good sign. And they asked my friend to leave because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And so he was asked to leave, and it wasn't a very nice experience. To watch that all unfold. Like, I could feel what was happening to my heart, but then I could actually see it in real time on the monitors. And I had about 2 or 3 episodes while I was in the ED there. And the doctors kept asking, why do you have an armband from another hospital? Like, what's going on? They were a bit concerned about that aspect of it. And I was concerned and upset because I felt like I shouldn't have to be going to somebody else's hospital about the issue that I was having at the RMH. I should have been dealt with there. That's where it started. That particular heart episode started there. I should have been dealt with there instead of having to go across Melbourne to another hospital to be dealt with. It didn't feel very nice. It didn't feel like I was heard. It didn't feel like it was safe. I didn't feel safe. And that was scary and upsetting for me, you know. And it's given me a complete and utter distrust of nurses and doctors, because their reports say there was nothing going on, and I never raised any concerns, and I know that I did raise concerns, and I know that they were valid because the other hospital found the issue and was able to establish that what I was talking about was in fact valid. So it didn't feel very nice. It didn't. I know nurses have got a lot on their plate. They don't want to deal with it. And I know doctors do too. But yeah, it was a very upsetting and frightening experience. If my friend wouldn't have been there, I don't know what would have happened to me. What I can say is I would not have gotten any medical care for what was happening with my heart. I do know that much. Because what was happening is the nursing staff were becoming angry at me, and so was the doctors, because I was having heart turns. I wasn't able to answer their questions properly because of it. But instead of taking that into account or testing for it, they were just getting angry. So, it wasn't a very nice experience. Before the doctors and nurses were finished with me at the second hospital, I left early because at that point I was too distressed and upset at what the RMH had done to me to be touched by anybody. I didn't feel like I wanted to be touched by anybody or any of that, because I was so upset at what the RMH had done. And so I left early from the other hospital because I was just too distressed. I think had someone have talked to me, then my stress level would have come down and we could have worked out what was going on a bit more. But yeah, that's where it's at. The RMH really did distress me beyond reason, and that's why I don't cooperate so much with doctors and nurses anymore. It's because it's been utterly destroyed my cooperation and my trust by the RMH. There's been so many things they've done to do that. And it's been reinforced by not continuing with my feeding tube and refusing supply, knowing that I'll die. It's been reinforced that these are not good nurses and doctors. They're not out for my best interest, and they don't really care about me. So long as I'm passed away, that's what they want. Because then people, can't tell what really happened.